Hey folks, this is A Automotive Reviews. Today we have here Ford is celebrating the 55th anniversary of the Broncos with the 2021 Bronco. Sources from Truck Trend. Article done by Bruce W. Smith. Now back in 2016, we here at the Four Wheeler Network and the Truck Trend celebrated the 50th anniversary of the revered and loved Ford Bronco. And now the Bronco is reaching its 54th anniversary. The aura of the Bronco's legend continues with the impending release of the new 2021 Bronco. With the help of the freelance experts historian Bruce Smith and a little help from Ford and Stroppe Performance, let's look back on the history of this legendary 4x4. The Bronco has had a lasting impact on the off-road world, entering the fray at a time when just about everyone was jumping on the small 4x4 bandwagon. The Bronco was the first commercially available 4x4 with coil front suspension with radius arms, and one of the first to see the factory available V8 as an option. The front coil suspension that was ahead of its time and later adopted by most other manufacturers, and that rumbly and potent Ford V8 etched an indelible mark in the off-road world, excelling in off-road racing and within the off-road enthusiast marketplace. Golden anniversaries are special, unlike the 50th birthday, which is congratulatory celebration, making it a certain point after a born-on date. A golden anniversary evokes a much deeper and reflective look at the most memorable highlights of the journey to reach such a benchmark. The Bronco Golden Anniversary this year certainly gamers that respect. Like a couple celebrating their golden wedding anniversary, off-roaders who have one or more Broncos in their stable have a true passion for this unique 4x4. Brought to market in August 1965 as a 1966 model to compete against the Jeep CJ5 and the International Scout 800s of the time, Ford advertised it quite simply, Bronco All-Purpose Vehicle. Ford's new offering was love at first sight. For those seeking a more civilized, smoother riding, more powerful two-door alternative to the CJ5s and the International Harvester of the day, Ford sold more than 35,000 Broncos during the first 2 years. And I think this time they're going to knock it out the box. Now this brochure that we had before, it says advertising. And this is advertised in the 1966 Ford Bronco, which evokes the new 4x4 offering outdoor appeal. This photo is courtesy of Ford Motor Company. Take a look at this, folks. The heritage of the Ford Bronco. This is going to help you appreciate this SUV. Now, Ford touted the compact 4x4 maneuverability, ride comfort, outdoor appeal, but it was the push in the off-road racing circles that really heated up the romance with the little Bronco, a romance that still remains strong today. The most popular model was the wagon, followed by the half cab with its short bed and a ragtop roadster. Although the basic models came with a 170 CID straight 6 3-speed, it was the optional 289 CID V8 and a long list of other accessories that excited the off-road enthusiasts and a four-wheeling crowd. The popularity of the Bronco kick-started the advent of the sport utility vehicle, or SUV. By the early 70s, SUVs such as the Chevy Blazer, International Scout II, and the Jeep Cherokee were all trying to get their piece of the new fast-growing automotive niche. Off to the races. But it was the off-road racing scene that really put the spotlight on the early Broncos. The Ford-backed Hallman Moody Stroppe HMR racing team started winning races with the bobtails in 1965, even before some dealers had them on the lot. (1977) was the last year of the bobtail Broncos. It was offered in 18 different colors, with either a 3-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic, behind the 302 V8. It was the classic Bronco's best sales year. Let's take a look at this brochure with the specifications, the color choices, the GVWR packages. This is the Bronco. Stroppe early race winning Broncos was powered by a 200 CID straight 6 topped with a supercharged design for the Cobra 289. It made 315 horsepower and sounded like the high-pitched whine of a bumblebee in flight, according to 1968 Ford press release. By 1969, however, the team entries were running V8s. Let's take a look at this. See if we can get even a little closer. The publicity gamered from winning the longest and most prestigious off-road events of the time, Mint 400, Baja 500, Mexican 1000, Baja 1000, with the legendary drivers like Larry Minor, Rod Hall, Pernelli Jones, and Bill Stroppe leading the charge, cemented the Bronco name in automotive history books. The early racing glories also led to Stroppe offering a very limited production special edition Baja Bronco through Ford dealers from 1971 and 1975. So let's bring back the Baja. The Broncos came right from the Ford plant to Stroppe's Southern California shop, where they were customized with double shocks on all 4 corners, fender flares, roll cage, heavy-duty suspension, swing-away tire carriers, auxiliary fuel tank, extra cooling, and off-road tires. Stroppe Baja Bronco were also available with the C4 automatic and power steering, which Ford didn't offer until 1973, along with the option of the competition racing harnesses, high performance 302, and a Detroit locker in the rear. Today, Baja Broncos are rare and very coveted by Ford Bronco aficionados. So get the Baja package if you can afford it. Lydia Main's 1967 Roadster is rare, as Ford only offered the ragtop during the first 2 years of the Bronco production. Winning such high-profile off-road events also had another effect that's still going among 50 years. Later Bronco Owners Club's Ford press release in 1970 says, "Burgeoning interest in the off-road vehicles such as the Ford Broncos created an entirely new field of enthusiasts who wanted to enjoy their sport more fully as members of an organized group. A strong lineage, but now sales of the little Bronco were being overrun by the Blazers and the Cherokees, which appealed to a broader range of 4x4 buyers, seeking even more power, room, and comfort than Ford two-door bobtail offered. The classic first-generation Broncos had a good 12-year production run, even though the total sales only topped at 230. It played a big role in blazing the trail for not only the SUV market, but also the compact SUV market of today. Ford had not made any major changes to it, other than upgrading the V8 and automatic, so big changes were made to keep the Bronco competitive in the even-changing SUV market. In 1979 and 1978, a new 106-inch wheelbase Bronco emerged, sitting on a shortened F100 chassis and sharing its drivetrain. A dozen years later, one of the Broncos of '79 called Project Deepwood was one of the off-road magazine projects truck bills in 1961. Deepwoods generated more interest from readers than any other project bill up to that time. Future off-road Hall of Famers Rod Hall and Larry Minor, on their way to the first overall in 1969 Mexican Baja 1000, driving in a Stroppe built Bronco in the production 4x4 class, photo courtesy of Stroppe Performance, which you see here. Ford kept the same game plan from then on, staying with a bigger body based on whatever they did on the F-150 in 1980, and a third generation Bronco emerged, sharing a 104-inch platform and looks of the F-150. The Bronco was growing up and becoming a lot more sophisticated and refined. The short wheelbase, roomier interior, better suspension made a full-size Bronco popular for the Ford living families and those who wanted a very capable 4x4 truck with an enclosed cargo area. Off-roaders and outdoorsmen took to modifying the big Broncos in the same way they did the F-150s. In 1987, Ford made another big facelift still, following the changes made to the F-150. More safely, features are added and more bells and whistles to meet the demand of the consumers. That fourth generation Bronco lasted through 1991, when Ford once again made a major facelift to the 1992 F-150, and hence emerged the fifth generation Bronco. On June 14, 1996, the last Bronco rolled off the Fort Wayne, Michigan assembly line, accompanied appropriately by the 1970 Bobtail. The two-door Bronco was put out to the pasture, replaced by the four-door Expedition. Bill Stroppe and Pernelli Jones, at speed during the 1970 Mexican Baja 1000, the Holman Moody Stroppe racing team of the Broncos were hard to beat in the desert and in the late 60s and the early 70s. This photo is courtesy of Stroppe Performance. Gone, not forgotten. Even though the Bronco is no longer in production, its legacy stands strong. Broncos from every generation still run the streets and trails. Those who own Broncos, especially the classic first generation models, are loath to let them go. When they do, it's often passed down to a son, daughter, family member, or close friend. Hundreds of Broncos related how-to articles and featured vehicles have graced the pages of this magazine. This predecessor off-road and the other four-wheel drive publications during the last 50 years. Such articles will continue to flow, just as love of the classic Bobtail and its full-size offspring keep owners engaged, customizing them for all types of dirt sports and off-road pursuits. Thankfully, there's a number of Bronco-specific and other aftermarket suppliers that have all the parts and accessories to restore and customize every model from every generation. We'll be highlighting many of those. And a how-to and the features in the this coming year. So stay tuned to Truck Trends. The winning notoriety of the Stroppe Racing Broncos led Bill Stroppe to offering limited edition Baja Broncos, like this one from 1971-1974. This photo is courtesy of Andy Gouge. Stock or custom early model Bobtail of the full-size Broncos still fit right in with the off-road crowd. It appealed to a half-century ago when Ford brought it to life. So to all those who own or work on or make or supply parts for Broncos, be they bobtails or full size or toast happy golden anniversary Broncos. So the first generation was from 1965 to 1977. The models included the wagon, a half cab, the roadster, the sport, Bill Stroppe, and a Baja Bronco. Engine 84 horsepower, 170 CID, and 2.8 liter. Goes on and on, folks. Now, you can remember the Big Ollie or Ollie, the 1970 models. It was the most recognizable of all the racing Broncos. Pinelli Jones and Bob Stroppe won the Mexican Baja 1000 in record time that year, and went on to set numerous other desert racing records, piloting a fiberglass-bodied 400 horsepower tube chassis two-wheel drive racer that was originally called Crazy Colt. This photo is courtesy of Stroppe Performance. Now the third generation models was the XL, XLT, the Lariat, the Ranger, the Eddie Bauer. And the fourth generation models being the Custom XL, XLT, Knight, and Eddie Bauer engines. Broncos remained popular in off-road racing long after Big Ollie retired. Here, Rotherman's Class 3 battles a buggy during the 1991 Mint 400. The 69 Broncos of the Mike Stolberger was featured in 1991 issue of Off-Road. The same type of customization on the classic era are still happening today. The more we dive into this article, the more of an appreciation you get for the Bronco. It's just amazing. Now, Ford offered the Bronco in three basic styles, as you can see here. When it debuted in 1966, the Roadster, the Sport, and the Utility, the half cab, and the wagon. The convertible was dropped in 1968, the half cab 4 years later. Now you can see that the windshield looked like it may have also folded, and the doors and the mirrors were connected to the doors. So there's been some big changes, and now the mirror is connected to the cowl. On this page from the 1966 Ford Bronco specs show the variations offered and a list of standard features available for the new Ford four-wheel drive. This photo is courtesy of Ford Motor Company. The Bronco U100 four-wheel drive. The base 105 horsepower, 170 CID straight six wasn't a powerhouse by today's standard, but it was reliable and fuel efficient back in the day. The option was the 289 CID V8 that powered Ford's Mustang in fair lanes. This photo also courtesy of Ford Motor Company. Now things get quite crazy now, but Ford really went after the outdoor lifestyle, even showing the Sport Utility model with a sliding camper and a short bed. This photo courtesy again of Ford Motor Company. This is a studio shot of the 1966 Sport Utility Ford Bronco. A photo by Ford Motor Company. Mike Johnson's 72 half-cab Bronco looks and runs a lot different than the original. His frame off restoration included a 425 horsepower 4.8 Ford stroker, built C4 and a dual transfer case, custom parts and accessories bound for these old classics. By 1977, Ford had upgraded the Bronco with power steering and automatic, and a 6-cylinder, were long gone, leaving the 302 Winster as the only engine choice. The big champs in 1978, Ford switched gears and built the Bronco on the F-150 platform, increasing wheelbase to 106 inches. It was the start of an entirely different era for the Bronco. More room, more options, more comfort. Ford advertises the new generation Bronco with heavy emphasis on the off-road backcountry abilities. 351 V8 and the off-road options that no other full-size SUV was offering at the time. Project Deepwoods was the author project truck of Off-Road magazine in 1991. The camo, the 79 Bronco, ran and built 460 with a 6-inch lift, 35s and ARB air lockers in both ends. The year-end build had a big reader following. The third generation Broncos from 1980 to 1986 evolved step by step with the F-150, sharing drivetrains and interior. 3 engine options in line 6 and 2 V8s gave buyers a wider range of options than the previous model. In the early 80s, Broncos were a big hit. With many outdoorsmen, these hunters in the South Louisiana found a big lift kit and a 44-inch motor with just a ticket when heading deep into the bayous. When the fourth generation came out in 1987, Ford beefed up the rear differentials with a 9-inch brought in the EFI and added a 4-speed auto with the overdrive, along with implementing a growing number of safety and emission components. The popularity of the fourth generation Bronco among off-road enthusiasts continued to drive creativity. This 1988 Texas Bronco, captured in action by the author, was featured in Off-Road magazine back in 1991. Now, some Bronco owners totally enjoy taking their trucks deep into the woods. The 1990 Bronco was owned by Jim Jackson of ARB Airlocker, who left many a smaller SUV in the mud back in the late 90s. All right. Getting down and dirty deep. And it still is a popular Bronco activity on weekends for lots of earlier generation full-size Broncos. The last generation of the Broncos were built between 1992 and 1996, when Ford put the name in the truck out to pasture, ushering in an Expedition as a replacement. It was a good 30-year run that saw a lot of variety and changes in the vehicle marketed under the same name. All their 1990 Bronco was part of the Off-Road magazine project build in the early 90s. A 6-inch lift, Warren wrench, 35 BFG MTs, and a locker front and the rear made it quite trail ready. And look at that. The purpose-built trail rig of Jim Shroom found the transition from the rocks of Moab to the dunes of Florence, Oregon, an easy one. His 70 bobtail run a custom long travel 4-link that he designed and faved. Andy Hess 73 ragtop shows how the aftermarket support the rebuilding and customization of the first generation Broncos. Now this Bronco is going through low water crossing during the Bronco road test for the four-wheeler magazine back in 1988. Now that is a lot of fun, folks. And this concludes the history of the Ford Bronco. And I hope this increased a lot of appreciation for this SUV. And it's just going to increase your love for it. And boy, oh boy, it's going to be great to see the new 2021 Bronco out on the streets. Much love, A Automotive Reviews.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more interesting videos.